Alright, welcome back to another VOD review. This time we will be looking at a 22 Galakrond's Fall from Dawn of the Infinite. Yeah, I think to start off, I'll go ahead, someone recommended that I go ahead and look at a sort of overview of my gear as well as stats. So at the time of doing this dungeon, this is what my gear looked like. I do have 4-piece. I was 477 eye level, and my haste is sitting at about 33%, which is, in my opinion, that's the stat that I'm going for the most. That's not just my opinion, that's something that's recommended. But really, haste and crit strike are going to be the main two that you'll be looking at. My mastery was sitting at 29%, which in my opinion was high. I prefer to have my crit strike, so I prefer haste, crit, then verse, then mastery. I know that that is, I think the book says haste, crit, and then mastery and verse is whatever, but because I, last season I started to push higher keys for the first time, and verse was kind of my best friend for staying alive. So that's kind of how I approach that. Yeah, so in terms of talents, this is what we're looking at here. I think I mentioned in a previous video that I was going to take the point away from Sanctuary and put it somewhere else. I went ahead and put it into Ultimate Penitence. I've been running Ultimate Penitence. I was a little apprehensive of using it at first, just because I wanted to make sure that I had a good sense of damage patterns and, you know, ground swirlies and different, you know, different effects that could theoretically kill me if they popped up underneath me while I was in the middle of Ultimate Penitence. So yeah, instead of putting the Sanctuary point into Blaze of Light, I went ahead and put it into UP. You'll see in this video, though, I think I only used this one time, which is really not great. For a 24-ish minute dungeon, I mean, I could have used it, you know, quick maths, at least 6 times. And I used it once. And so I think for this dungeon in particular, I will not be taking Ultimate Penitence going forward. But I want to, you know, keep the talent spread accurate to reflect what I used in this dungeon. Yeah, not much else to say. This is the same talent spread I've been using for previous videos. Yeah, I think damage and healing spread, I will talk about this very briefly at the end of the video, but starting with damage because the healing is a little bit weird. So Mindbender is going to be your number 1 that you'll be looking at. This percentage, 23, is a little bit low in my opinion. And I think there's a point in the video where I say, oh, I'm not talking about I'm not talking about the number of torments that I'm getting because I feel like that's not an area that I necessarily need to focus on right now. And I retract that statement because this really should be closer to 25 at a minimum. And so clearly I'm missing some torments, missing some uptime on my Mindbender. So that's something to keep in mind. I find typically, and this is what I've heard from other disc content creators as well, that you really can like just go ahead and rip Mindbender on like every pack. If you're smiting enough, you should be able to get that back quick enough. And what this percentage tells me is I could have done a better job of smiting to get my Mindbender back off cooldown. So I feel a little bit like a broken record, but I should just be smiting more. And I think I've said this in every video that I've made, but I really just need to be smiting more. And I think that there were a couple of times in the video watching it back that I was kind of just running around, which is really not good. You know, of course, using penance and you know, purge the wicked and divine star and whatever, but it did make it difficult to smite when I was just sort of moving unnecessarily or necessarily. There is a lot of movement required in this dungeon, so it makes sense that it would be not as high as I would like it to be, but I don't think that that's necessarily an excuse to not be smiting like crazy. I think otherwise, yeah, I think those were really the main areas that I wanted to focus on. Ultimate Penitence, I cast it. Okay, it says I cast it 2 times, but I'm pretty sure I cast it once, but that's besides the point. Yeah, so that's that. And then for healing, again, this is going to look really crazy because I did 125, it says I did 125 million healing to Chromie, which was 50% of the total. So if we do, you know, 251 minus 125, it's looking at about 124, 126. I don't know. Sue me. I can't do mental math. So that's still pretty high. This is a very, in my opinion, healing intensive dungeon, especially with the dragons that you'll see in the video. So yeah, makes sense that there would be a high output there. One thing that I wanted to focus on as well is casting Radiance fewer times than I typically do in other dungeons, and I think that I did that. So this dungeon, I'm just thinking back to my most recent Throne of the Tides video, for example, where I cast it, I think it was 59 times or something like that. So 44 to 59, that's some improvement. I think it is a little bit different because the Throne of the Tides video was during a bursting week, and I was using that to top people up after, you know, a bunch of stacks of bursting, but I didn't need to do that this week because we were doing volcanic and oh my gosh, what are they called? The Ghosty Boys. Anyway, so I didn't need as much topping up, basically. I don't really know how to explain this high. Oh no, this is definitely from Chromie. Okay, well, I don't know how to look at that exactly in details, but the penance healing is definitely from Chromie. So the healing spread on this, and honestly, many of the dungeons in this rotation is going to look strange just because of how the scaling works in those dungeons, so it's going to look a little weird. But anyway, that being said, we can go ahead and clip on over to the dungeon. All right, so starting things off, this was the second time that I had run a 22, and so really this time I was mostly just focused on cleaning up my play and making sure that there weren't quite as many deaths as there were in the Waycrest manor that was run earlier in the day. So starting in here, I'm just going to go ahead and open with a Schism Shadow Covenant window. This is a pretty big pull, and so I'm going to do everything I can to just kind of blast. And really try and play this pull more offensively than I think I normally would. One thing that I think I've mentioned in previous videos is, I don't know, I think I rely quite a bit on Rapture, and so for these pulls, especially the big ones, yeah, been focusing on playing more offensively. And with a big pack comes a lot of Spitefuls, and boy are they loud.
We will keep the reinforcements at bay.
So just clean that up. Did a little over 110k on that pull overall DPS wise, which is great. Bit of a late pain suppression. Not a bit. It was a very late pain suppression. And I think that in other times when that channeled ability goes on other teammates, I think that I do put PS on them a little bit earlier, but yeah, that's also something that's a little bit of a holdover from when I played Holy Priest. Slapping on a Guardian Spirit onto someone who I was, you know, a little bit afraid of their health, and I tend to do that with pain suppression at times, which is a bad habit I need to get out of, so something to keep in mind. I should watch it back, but I'm pretty sure that I didn't use a potion on that pack.
Empowered.
Either of those packs. So that is an
Empowered.
area, a major area of improvement. Raptured a little bit late there, but I think that that is a good spot for Rapture, especially on higher Tyrane keys. I think that that would be an excellent opportunity to use that that spell. I try to position myself so I can easily get to the soak circle. Nothing here, so let's see if I do a mind blast. Nope, I do nothing. Alright, cool. So if I were to do that again, I would go ahead and mind blast out of it. Just to get people topped. I might have been waiting for Mindbender though to do the combo. The 1-2 punch.
Reel from the shards of time!
Really not much to say on this fight. It's a pretty straightforward and simple one, especially on fortified weeks. So, yeah. Not a whole lot to say.
Now to open the
This
Timeways.
next trash platform, however, I think there is quite a bit of learning that can be had from what's about to happen here. Typically, so I've only run this dungeon a handful of times. I really haven't run it very frequently. But every time that I have run it, the vast majority of deaths happen on this platform. So
This will take
really,
some time.
really good to play as
Empowered.
defensively as possible.
Champions must destroy any anomalies that appear.
Yeah, I go ahead and I
Further
start with
twisting
a
You think the Infinite Springs
Schism Shadow Covenant window. These bursts, I don't exactly know the best way to handle them.
between
Maybe
the bronze
if I were to do it
Timeways.
again, it would be Pains Up the Druid. Because what happens is when the big circles expire, so I'm definitely going to die here even with Pain Suppression on. Oh, I didn't. Okay, there you go. So what happens is when those big circles expire, the tiny little anomalies or whatever they're called activate and then will attack you. And so what happens is it chunks you and then those little guys will activate and melee you and you just die. So yeah, I think another good play would have been a Rapture or a Barrier. Let's see if I use one on if I use either coming up here. Yeah, Bloom also really trucks. I'm not sure what that death was too, but it might have been a combination of Bloom not being dispelled quick enough and potentially a melee from a Spiteful. I should look at that back to see if I could have prevented it. So the blooms are coming out. I dispel as quickly as possible. Untwist is going to really chunk the tank, so I put PS on him. So I'm out of PSs, but we're about to go to the pack that does those big the big blow up circles again. So let's see if we Rapture or Barrier those. Looks like we're starting with this pack first, then circling back.
Empowered.
Get them Shadow Covenant in, Scream at the Innervate. Looks like I tried to get that last death in my Schism Shadow Covenant window, but couldn't quite get it. But the thought was there. That is something that I'm hoping to improve on a little bit more as well, is trying to sneak in as many, like snipe more of those deaths when I can. Alright, this would have been an excellent opportunity to barrier. Because those beams really truck. Get another Chrono Burst, another good opportunity to barrier. Instead I Ultimate Penitence. I think, yeah, if I were to do that again... Yeah, it looks like the Druid did die. So if I were to do that again, I would go ahead and barrier the Druid. I think the Paladin... Well, the Paladin was fine. I think he would have been fine anyway. There's another round. Let's see what I do. Nothing. Okay. So that is the #1 area for improvement on this platform, is just using my cooldowns. That is just so critical, as we saw on this platform. We had 5 deaths from the platform alone, which is fewer than what I've seen previously, but still quite a bit just for a trash platform. So that's something that I'm going to be working on in future runs, is making sure Barrier and Rapture are on cooldown, especially for those packs with the big blow-up circles.
Empowered.
Looks like I did use PS, but I think it could have been a little bit more well-timed.
Sands of time, I call upon you. The seconds pass.
So this boss is tricky for a number of reasons. Yeah, I think that was because I was in the light zone. So it's tricky because it's just difficult to do as a caster. You have to run constantly. You can make it work if you tuck yourself in. Like you saw me do the first time, not this time. It's also tricky because if you don't have defensives going, and if you're not basically topped, you could just be very easily killed from the dispel of the Chrono Faded.
Sands of time, I call upon you.
So it's very tense. There I'm doing a better job of tucking myself in a little bit. Getting a lot of Holy Nova value. I Raptured earlier. I think that this would be an excellent time for Barrier as well. So I'm seeing that I really didn't use Barrier like nearly as much as I could have. So that's big. My potion ready weak aura has also been looking me in the eye for I think the entire dungeon. So that's just a really major area for improvement.
The pathway is opened.
I think we might be skipping the dragon here. Yep. Did a little countdown, I'm sure.
You shall not interfere with our infinite dawn!
I like to wait to be the last person to go through just in case someone is somehow in combat. That's happened a few times where on the way through a portal someone can't go in because they're stuck in combat, and so I'll just have them jump off and then mass res.
With us?
I shall be with you in a sense, but not as you know me now.
That corpse above us. It's Galakrond.
We do double pull this I
Empowered.
don't think I would recommend a typical group double pulling this. I was pretty nervous going into it myself, and paint up myself here. This would be, again, another really great spot for barrier. There we go, it goes down. This would also be a good spot for ultimate penitence if I time it just right. Like if I did it right now after the Blight's view, I think that that would have been a good... Oh, nice. Let's see if this works out for me. It did not. Okay. But hey, the thought was there. Execution, not so much, but the thought was there. Go ahead and rapture that last bit. Mind Blast for the extra damage, just to top things off. And there you go. I think it was only up for a second, but I think it was 213k HPS, so it's definitely not easy. You have to kind of throw everything and the kitchen sink at it. We did not double pull this one, probably because I said I cannot sustain that again. At this point I didn't have barrier, I didn't have rapture, and so it would have just been me and Mindbender Mind Blast and hoping that that would pull us through, so I wanted to play it safe. We had plenty of time anyway, so we weren't rushed. I think I heard someone say at some point that like the scariest mobs in the Dawn of the Infinite Wings are just all of the dragons. If you see a dragon, you know it's going to be terrifying. And that is just so true. Healing these things is just crazy. Watching this back, I think in future videos I'm going to make sure that I have sort of a scroll of what abilities I'm casting to give viewers a better sense of what I'm casting and in what order. And then also I've seen a torment tracker floating around. I might install that as well, just to give a better sense of how many torments I'm hitting per window. Typically I'm able to hit between 6 to 8 depending on if it's in execute range, but it just depends. So passing this Blight orb corrosion thing, I don't remember what it's called. Passing it around is a ton of damage, especially on Tyrannical. This is fortified, so you didn't see it here. But that's something to be mindful of, is don't be afraid to, just really unload healing into people whenever that's passed around. I'd say this is a good use of barrier. There's a lot of AoE damage going out. I melded that.
5, 4,
so there was no corrosion that went out, which just helps with dealing with some damage. So if you're a night elf, that's an ability that you can shadow meld, and it can help quite a bit. Pain suppress myself with corrosion because it can really hurt. Penance into myself because I really need the extra healing. Then pass it off to the tank. Mindbender Mind Blast. I think that Dark Reprimand went into the wrong target, so that's unfortunate. Sort of tracking around to different targets, though, to try and get the frost off my teammate.
Sinks into your bones.
So I still have not used a potion, and this is a pretty close quarters fight, so there is kind of no reason not to. All of the fights in this dungeon actually are very close quarters, so pretty good for... I use Potion of Shocking Disclosure. Oh, actually, maybe I didn't use it because we're about to invis. Yes, that was why. Regardless, still good to get into a habit of using potions, which I don't think I used a single one in this entire dungeon, so we will, I'll put a sticky note or something on my computer.
My friends, with me.
The reminder. So we kill this first pack just for count, and then afterward we're going to skip to the end.
Bad. Really bad. Can you scout ahead? I'll be with you in a moment.
I'm not talking too much about my Schism Shadow Covenant windows because I feel like I have them down pat pretty much. Of course there's always room for improvement, you know, for everything, but for the most part I am hitting between 6 to 8 torments per window. So yeah, that's just not something that I'm really focusing on too much in these videos. If there's interest, however, I'm happy to. But just for my personal VOD review, it's not really an area that I need to focus on right now. But using potions and barrier is. So the tank did use a potion and so was unable to invis, so I'm just going to go ahead and mass res once we get to the end.
It looks kind of
You have to be kind of speedy about when you mass res if you do a group death skip, just because after there's a point in the RP where Iridikron knocks you back.
Which I shall reclaim.
Right there.
I need an opening to destroy that relic.
Champions of the Titans.
So this, I'm starting with Smite because I want to make sure I have my Schism Shadow Covenant for this big dot that goes on whoever soaks with Chromie. Great barrier here. Oh, down goes the tank.
Keep the pressure up.
Not sure what that was too.
Defended by Earth.
This is a good opportunity for Rapture, since there's a lot of AoE damage that goes out. It's just a handy thing to do on the move. Something to reach for while you're running around. I'm not rapturing yet, though. I chose to just do a... It looks like that was just Mindbender. It looks like I did not Mind Blast. Not sure why. Maybe it wasn't up. If we don't have the stops for these creations, I tend to scream at them just to help with CC. But we have a tank DH, so it wasn't a problem. Going ahead and smiting. Making sure Chromie's healed up because that has happened to me before where I've accidentally let her die. Very embarrassing. I have a pain sup for the paladin. Going to atone, then run over and Mindbender, Mind Blast. Looks like I held on to my Dark Reprimand until the actual impact. My thinking with that was I think I wanted to maximize the amount of healing throughput that I had instead of just sending it and using it as a damage cooldown. I really wanted to make sure that I got the most out of it that I possibly could, defensively. So that's the thinking there. Smiting, smiting, smiting. I think instead of, well, I'm not sure. I think one thing that I've talked about, why did I open my character pane? One thing that I've talked about before is using penance more, and watching this back I'm seeing that I am not using it as much as I could be. But really I'm just focused on making sure that I have everything I possibly can throw at... Oh. He wound up and decided just to not do that, which honestly probably saved my life. So for this section, I could have ultimate penitence, but in the moment I was too afraid to, because I wasn't sure if being above the bubble would kill me or not, and so I didn't do it, but that's potentially another area that I could have used it. So we +2'd it, got a +2'd the 22, got a portal from it, which is great. And yeah, I think all in all, the damage and healing spread is going to look a little funky just because you can see 50% of my healing went into Chromie and it was 125 mil, or a little over. For damage, 48.6, I think, yeah, Mindbender uptime could have been a little bit higher. 23% I think is a little bit low. 25 tends to be the minimum that I shoot for. I think Dark Reprimand and Smite damage, again, also could have been higher. I think I only used Ultimate Penitence once the whole dungeon, so that's something to consider, maybe not running in this one. But anyway, all in all, that was the key, and I think it went just about as well as it could have. Just goes to show that even if things are not completely optimized, they're still very doable, even if there's a lot of room for improvement. So yeah, that's the key, and see you next time.